Do you take a day off?
No.
Every single day?
Every single day. I don't think there's such a thing as day off for an artist. In fact, I met this woman. She said, "What are you?" She told me. I said, "I'm an artist." She said, "Artist is not a job. You're in therapy." So I tell people I'm in therapy. I'm glad to have a vent that comes out. So I'm very fortunate I'm an artist. I'm honored to be an artist.
You know, I feel very lucky. I mean, to do something that means so much to somebody. And, you know, I run across people all the time who say, "Oh, you know, I bought a painting from you in 1975 and I still love it." And I mean, how lucky can a person be?
Back to sort of how we were when we were drawing or doodling and painting when we were little kids. You know, none of us were thinking at that age that we were painting or drawing to sort of make a living or to sell this particular canvas. But then we just did it because we loved it and it was fun.
Every artist needs to make a living, and that's not the only thing that drives us. It's also the power of creativity and collaboration.
Four creatives with different styles, yet similar drives for expression through painting. Artists and painters next on Long Story Short.
One-on-one engaging conversations with some of Hawaii's most intriguing people. Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox.
Aloha mai kako, I'm Leslie Wilcox. On this episode of Long Story Short, we revisit conversations with artists who share their imagination, discipline, and techniques to communicate their vision of the world. Waipahu-born artist Harry Tsuchidana is known for his abstract works of art that play on subtle color manipulation and a sense of linear and spatial design. Peggy Hopper's celebrated paintings of Hawaiian women are featured in many island homes, hotels, and offices. And the vibrant murals through Honolulu's Kakaʻako neighborhood are created by the collective known as PowWow, co-led by artists Jasper, Wong, and Kamea, Hadar. We start with Harry Tsuchidana of Salt Lake, Honolulu. He was born in 1932, joined the U.S. Marines in 1952, and then attended prestigious art schools in Washington, D.C. and New York. At the time of our conversation in 2016, Harry Tsuchidana was still creating. He credits the support of his late wife, Violet, and the early encouragement of his mother for a career that spans 6 decades.
She saw me doing artwork, and she said to me, "Do like what you like to do best." And she never said anything about the bottom line, how you're going to make a living. She said, as long as you like what you're doing, that's the most important thing. And I was born with an asthma, so I couldn't play with the rest of the other kids. So I started to trace comics. And after that, I drew from a magazine, movie magazine, baseball, boxers. Well, I was intrigued by creating by adding and eliminating. There was a landscape, and there were buds, and there were some trees, and there was nothing on the left. So I just turned around and looked, and there was a mango tree there. So I put the mango tree there. So I could move things. And that's the thing that fascinated me. In fact, when I was 7th grade, I did a tree, Waipahu Elementary School. The tree is still there. I did a red and blue background. And the teacher said to me, her name was Mrs. Wong, she said, "That's not a tree." But I said, "That's my tree." And I always wanted to be an artist. I told everybody going to be an artist. Well, it's really tenacity, stick-to-itiveness. And when I joined the Marine Corps, it's the discipline that I learned. I stayed only 3 years, but I really liked Marine. I developed alligator skin, and...
Why did you develop alligator skin?
Because, being a kid from Waipahu, you're sensitive, everybody tells you something, you get hurt by it. In the service, they kid you around, and, you develop that, When I was stationed in Japan, in the enlisted man club, this person in charge said, "You should have a show." I did some artwork. And then I got a note from a second lieutenant saying that you shouldn't be in the infantry. You should be in GS2. So he transferred me. That changed my whole life, that second lieutenant.
And went to Corcoran School of Art?
Yes, yeah. And
So all by yourself, right? This is out of the Marines, you're heading to art school.
yeah.
Well, what kind of art had you been doing all this time? You starting when you were a little kid and going through the Marines. I'm sure you didn't stop. I mean, what kind of art had you been doing?
A nature motif, like weeded out, sprouting. But in 1979, I depart from that. I did a stage series. Maybe, can I demonstrate?
Sure.
Let's see. Usually I use T-square, but this will do. Okay, this distance here took me a while to get that distance. The early ones, I made it higher. You see, this is eye level right here. So my view is right here. This is where it is, right there. And the vertical line, randomly I put this here.
You're directing eyes off the paper,
Yes.
above.
Yeah, above, yeah, yes. Okay. Constantly, I'm aware of the distance, constantly. Okay. Now, there's two areas right there, and there's another area. I'm breaking the space. That's what it is. There's an area there. Now, this is where, right here, I have a T-square at home that my mother-in-law, when she passed away, was in that room. I use that every day. Okay. Now, this is the angle right here. This is the angle. And you put another vertical line here. I did this 79. To this day, I still do it. It fascinates me. And this angle right here. So constantly moving. Dave Soji do this every day, right? He look things this way. He shift things. Yeah. So
When he considers what to do in his volleyball games, you mean?
you know the way he look at things from the angle. Same thing apply. It applies to you, right?
360 looking at things, you mean?
Yes. Yes.
Except yours is on a linear plane.
Yes. Yes. Okay. This way, constantly. After a while, I don't think like this. I just do it. You know.
So you're trying to get people to look at, quote, all the angles.
Yeah, all the angle from this to it. And the color, then that's another level, you know, because it creates a sensation when you put color next to each other. Now, let me show what I do today. Completely different. I did this morning. Form. Free form.
Freeform.
Completely contradict that. Exciting. And I put a wash over.
So you go from this to that, and what is this telling you?
Trump.
Trump.
Donald Trump. Think of yourself. Think about America. I don't know. Form.
When you draw, do you know what you're going to draw?
No, I don't. I'm intrigued myself. Someone told me I entertain myself. So by doing this, total freedom.
So you don't wait for inspiration, you're already working.
That's Hollywood. Hollywood waits for inspiration. I chase the bugger, you know. So I don't wait for inspiration. I come to them. Okay, the nose like this, and nose the other way. It's fun to do this. The lips is this way. Another lips this way. Chin this way. Okay. You know, somebody told me, don't you do realistic work? Once you know how to play chess, you don't want to read checkers.
And that's true, because you've done portraiture, you've done the landscaping, you've done a lot of that, very realistic stuff.
Yeah, and it's more rewarding to do more abstract, you know, because you can move more things. Yeah, I just created, you know, and I have alienated a lot of people by doing the stage series.
Why is that?
Because there's no handle. Handle means there's no representational. that you can say, oh, that's a tree, or whatever.
So you weren't trying to make your art friendlier to the user, right?
Right.
I love your colors too. I mean, so you shapes, lines, and colors.
That's how I approach art, not so much what it represents.
In the spring of 2020, Harry Tsuchidana was 88 years old and still expressing his artistic vision by drawing his creations primarily on paper. Honolulu artist and designer Peggy Hopper started creating her celebrated paintings of island women in the 1970s. Born in 1935 in Southern California, she studied art in college and later did design work in New York, California, and Italy before settling in Hawaiʻi in 1963. During our 2010 conversation, she explained how her unexpected departure as art director from a leading Honolulu ad firm opened the door to a new, successful career.
It was perfect timing because I had taken one weekend off to start painting again because acrylic paints had just been invented. And we had just bought a house up in Oʻahu, and I had no furniture. And I set up an easel, and I hadn't painted for, 10 years. And I started to paint. And I went to the archives and started looking at the old photographs. Now, this is still why I was working it. And I was looking at these old photographs of the Hawaiian women lying on the beach, playing their ukuleles, and greeting the boats. And I started doing these paintings of these Hawaiian women. And they sort of reminded me of El Greco because I also painted people in tunics or muumuus, back in Art Center. And then when I was fired, and of course I was incensed, why should have fired me? I had won more awards for the agency, than anybody, but it was a gift. My friend Mary Philpotts lived around the corner from us. And she came over one day and she said, so what are you doing now that you're not working anymore? And I said, well, I'm staining some shutters for the windows and I'm doing experimenting with some acrylic paints. And she said, oh, can I see those? And I said, yeah. And they were just like sketchy things, small, 24 by 30. And he said, could you do me like 30 or 20 of those for the Kona Village? She was renovating the Kona Village. Oh, can I do you 20 of those for the Kona Village? You betcha. So that was my first big, thanks to Mary, my first big commission. And it's kind of like I've been so lucky. I mean, at the right place, at the right time. And in Honolulu, there weren't a lot of people doing what I was doing.
Did Mary tell you later what exactly she liked about it?
I think they matched the bedspreads. And then I had a show at the Foundry, which was, you remember the Foundry down in Kakaʻako?
Yes.
Yeah. And people started getting interested in my work and, would commission me to do things or buy. I was kind of obsessive about my work. Well, because I had these images in my head too, and it's not like I was a painter, it was more like I was an illustrator or a designer is what I was doing. I was designing these paintings. And I just would work all the time. I often am looking at people's faces when I'm driving around or, wherever I go, I will see something that I just etch in my mind. Well, first of all, I think of it as sort of an androgynous face. I don't think of it as a typically female face. I think of it as more of an iconic. I don't think of it as a portraiture.
Are you painting the same face every time?
Maybe.
And we never see teeth and full smiles. We might see a hint of a smile, but we don't see teeth.
No,
we don't
see
see happy smiley. Why is that?
Because I want you to take them seriously too, I guess. Yeah, No, that's interesting. I never really thought about that.
Your distinctive women in mu'umu'u never wear floral mu'us. They don't have prints. It's always a solid color.
Well, some of them do, but I think, I don't know why I don't do florals. I don't know. You know, it's funny. Sometimes you don't know why, you don't really question. I think this is why I'm not a good teacher, too, is because I'm not, when I'm working, I'm not consciously thinking, why don't I do this, or why do I do that, or it just kind of, you start out with a composition, which I do small, and then I transfer it on charcoal onto a canvas, and then I start painting, and then something happens and it starts to just become what it's going to become, and sometimes I'm very disappointed, and sometimes I'm moderately pleased, and sometimes very seldom am I really pleased.
What are your women thinking about?
Oh gosh, Leslie. They're thinking about whatever you want them to be thinking about. Some people say to me, oh, they look so peaceful, I really like them being peaceful. That's fine. I don't think of them as peaceful. Like I say, I just think of them as an image. It's design. I hope it's good design, and I hope it's good drawing, and because that's how I was taught. I wasn't taught to have a lot of deep, existential meaning behind this, and like they teach you in art school today.
How successful do you describe yourself as?
I'll tell you what, I describe myself as more successful than I ever imagined I was going to be. I'm not all tied up in what I do. Cole Porter said something really wonderful once. Someone asked him, Mr. Porter, you write all these beautiful songs. It seems so effortless. How do you do it? How do you make it seem so effortless? And he said, because, he said, my art is not my life. My life is my art. And I've thought about that really your whole life, your relationships with your family, your friends, yourself, your relationship with yourself, what you do with your time on earth, you're lucky if you can, express yourself and be creative. It's all tied up together.
After 40 years, Peggy Hopper retired from her downtown Honolulu gallery. Honolulu artists Jasper, Wong, and Kamea Hadar are at the forefront of the international artist collective and nonprofit PowWow Hawaiʻi, which was founded by Wong in 2010 and is now co-led by both of them. During our conversation in 2013, Wong and Hadar were building a thriving art community with their organization of gallery shows, educational opportunities, and most notably, the production of large-scale mural projects that transformed the walls of buildings in the Kakaʻako district in the heart of urban Honolulu.
With the straw all day long. It was always something that I did growing up. Like I would have, in my composition books, it would always be just drawings of comic book characters, or on the side of the page I would do little, like a flip book cartoon of Dragon Ball characters fighting each other and stuff. It was just always something that I wanted to do. And my mom was always very supportive. She wasn't that typical Asian mom where it was I had to be a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer or something. It was I was into art, and she found ways to sort of help me. Either she'll buy me books, or she'll try to enroll me in classes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Or something like that, yeah.
Kamea, were you always drawing and painting at a young age too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ever since I can remember, my parents are, like us. They're talkers and dreamers, and they're doers. And yeah, I think my parents definitely instilled the work ethic that I have, and then the reach for the stars kind of attitude that is necessary to be an artist and to be, to do big things like this. My parents were always traveling and always taking my brother and I all over the world, and I just grew up, constantly experiencing new places and new people and seeing new things. And I think that, to me, just gives you that kind of open-mindedness that is really good for a creative person, because the world is huge and the possibilities are endless, you know?
I kind of enjoy those kind of experiences, sort of picking up and leaving and then going to a city where you're like, know nobody and trying to start over and meet people, and it kind of opens up your horizons. I moved to Hong Kong because I wanted to learn about manufacturing. And
Manufacturing?
And like anything. Like, I know that when I went to art college, like they teach you concepts and ideas, but then what is that process to get your idea to a physical form? If you're doing a shoe, a chair, or anything for that matter, like what is that? How do you get that to sort of become an actual?
Was that related to your art career?
Yeah, and at that time, mainland Chinese art was sort of like the hot commodity. Like if you weren't mainland Chinese, then they couldn't care. So I'll take my art around, and they didn't want to show my work because it wasn't a good investment. You know, like there was no potential. So my choice was to either just give up or just start my own gallery. So I just ended up starting my own little gallery, and just to push my own art and to push friends' art. And there was like, and so we just did that. And the first show in that little gallery was the first PowWow.
You came up with the name PowWow?
Yeah, PowWow, yeah, because then the Pow was sort of the reaction that art has on the viewer. It's like a punch in the face. It came from like comic books. And then Wow is sort of your reaction to that work. So we have the exclamation marks behind each word. It's just sort of like Pow and the Wow and the PowWow together. It's like a gathering to celebrate art, culture, and music. It felt like it was the perfect term for what we were pushing and what we were doing. You know, and so it became that, and afterwards it was like, we want to keep doing it, and so where could we do it? You know, either we could do it in Berlin, Singapore, Shanghai, Beijing, wherever there was friends that had spaces, and then Hawaii was a choice too. But you know, growing up in Hawaii, we were always like, was it the best spot to do it? Like, do you think people would really care about it? And we felt like we should try.
Well, what is it? I mean, what is the essence of PowWow?
If we got that many people together, of just like all these creative people into one place, then something amazing is going to happen. As an everyday person, sometimes you're kind of afraid to sort of pass that threshold and go into a gallery because you feel like maybe it's not for you, or maybe it's for like high society or something. So then if we paint on walls in public, you have no choice. Like it's right in front of you. You know, the artwork that you drive, like it's right there.
And also the murals bring other positive things. Not only does it bring attention to their businesses and to their land and buildings, but it, you know, I think a common misconception is that you know, this is going to attract vandalism, but it actually, you know, does quite the opposite. Once the walls are painted, it becomes, you know, not completely untouchable, but let's say people don't mess with the artwork. I mean, it's a big deal to vandalize somebody's artwork. So the caretakers of the land have actually told us that, you know, they buff out probably a quarter the amount of graffiti that they used to, or illegal, you know, vandalism that they used to.
Is that respect paid by graffiti artists to other artists?
Yeah, but we're also very inclusive of the whole graffiti community. Like, we try to include them into the project as well, and we try to give them a voice through those walls. And I think by doing that, it's sort of, to a lot of them, it makes the place to them more sacred.
That's the beauty of it, is that we have all these different artists, and everyone gets along so well.
They respect each other?
Yeah. Process of creation and collaboration are two of the biggest things that we stress at PowWow. So collaboration, you know, not only makes for better, more interesting art many times, but also it's a beautiful thing to see artists share their cultures through art. And one of my favorite things that we've been doing the last couple of years is blacking out and destroying the pieces, some of them, you know. And people are always shocked when we do that, and it's one of my favorite things in the world to do.
Why is that? Because you love creativity, and now you're destroying.
Because it just proves that it's really not about the finished product. That's something that you're going to sell. Or, I mean, you know, every artist needs to make a living, and you know, it has to be, you know, we have gallery shows and the pieces are for sale, but that's not the only thing that drives us. It's also the power of creativity and collaboration, all the artists working together, and the process of all of us working together. And to see that happen and to be a part of it as an artist, it's a beautiful thing. And whatever we create, it's, you know, it's not that important.
It brings it back to sort of how we were when we were drawing or doodling and painting when we were little kids. None of us were thinking at that age that we were painting or drawing to sort of make a living or to sell this particular canvas. But then we just did it because we loved it and it was fun. And I think when you do it that way, when you sort of create it just for the fun of creation, and then destroy it afterwards, it kind of reminds us that it's really just about having fun and painting and creating.
They continue to engage the community in art creation, artistic collaboration, and an appreciation for art. Mahalo to Jasper, Wong, and Kamea Hadar of East Honolulu, Peggy Hopper of Pacific Heights, Honolulu, and Harry Tsuchidana of Salt Lake, Honolulu, for having shared your art and your stories with us. And mahalo to you for joining us. For PBS Hawaii and Long Story Short, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Aloha nui.
But it's the influence of Jackson Pollock.
How did you do this? Do you throw the paint to the canvas?
Like that.
Oh, like this.
Like that.
Okay.
Like that.
So it's horizontal.
Flat.
It's not
I
on.
paint flat, and then you cannot put too much water, or you cannot put not water because it doesn't splatter. There's a little control, and there's an order to that, because you have to put a lighter color, then you put and then you put a medium color like the orange and the red.
Right.
And the one that you put a kicker to that is the dark color, which is black or the blue. That's the thing that comes right
and
out.
actually, I would have thought that the dark was the foundation color.
Yeah,
But that's the last.
Yeah, that was the one that I started with in this one.
Oh, okay, I see.
But then on top of that dark color, I put that color. But it's fascinating. Put the black and boom, all the color come right out of that chair. There's an order to that. Yeah.
For audio and written transcripts of all episodes of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, visit pbshawaii.org. To download free podcasts of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, go to the Apple iTunes Store or visit pbshawaii.org.